The chipped mug warmed Detective Inspector Mallory Dawson's hands, but did little to thaw the chill that had settled deep in her bones. The November rain lashed against the windows of the cluttered DI office, a symphony of misery that mirrored the case file open in front of her. Amelia Hayes, 38, vanished without a trace. Amelia was a librarian, a creature of habit, a woman whose life seemed as orderly and predictable as the Dewey Decimal System. She lived alone in a small, meticulously kept flat above a bakery, worked at the quaint St. Clement's library, and spent her evenings reading, knitting, or attending the occasional book club meeting. No husband, no children, no drama. Just quiet, comfortable routine. That routine shattered 10 days ago. Amelia hadn't shown up for work. Her cat, a fluffy Persian named Proust, wailed unanswered within the locked flat. Her phone went straight to voicemail. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle, just an empty flat and a growing sense of unease. Mallory sighed, pushing a stray strand of auburn hair behind her ear. 10 days. After 48 hours, the likelihood of finding someone alive diminished drastically. 10 days, and Amelia was still a ghost. "Anything, Davies?" she asked without looking up. D.S. Davies, a young, eager officer with a perpetually nervous tic, shuffled in, clutching a stack of papers. From the forensics report, DI. Nothing significant in the flat. No DNA besides Amelia's and, well, Proust's. No fingerprints that don't belong. The only thing that stood out was a faint trace of iron oxide on the doorknob. Rust, maybe? They're running further analysis. Mallory frowned. Rust was hardly a lead. And her bank statements? Clean. No unusual activity. Regular payments for rent, utilities, cat food, library fines. Davies trailed off, his tic intensifying. She even paid her library fines on time. Who does that? Mallory managed a weak smile. Amelia Hayes, apparently. Days bled into weeks. Mallory interviewed Amelia's colleagues, neighbors, and members of her book club. They all described her in the same terms: quiet, kind, unremarkable. She had no enemies, no debts, no secret lovers. Just a life meticulously crafted and meticulously lived. The lack of leads was suffocating. Mallory found herself increasingly obsessed with Amelia, poring over her file late into the night, searching for a crack in the facade, a hint of something hidden beneath the surface. One evening, fueled by lukewarm coffee and sheer desperation, Mallory visited St. Clement's library. The air smelled of old paper and dust, a comforting aroma that usually calmed her frayed nerves. Tonight, though, it amplified her frustration. The librarian on duty, a young woman with bright pink hair and an equally bright smile, remembered Amelia fondly. She was lovely, D.I., always so helpful. She knew every book in this place. Mallory walked through the familiar stacks, her fingers trailing along the spines. Fiction, non-fiction, biography, history. She paused at a shelf dedicated to local history, her gaze snagging on a slim volume. A History of St. Clement's, Secrets and Legends. She pulled the book from the shelf, its cover worn and faded. As she flipped through the pages, a small folded piece of paper fell out. It was a handwritten note, dated 3 months prior, and addressed to Amelia. "Meet me at the old mill, midnight this Saturday. I have information about your grandfather. Don't tell anyone. A friend." Mallory's heart skipped a beat. This was it. A lead, finally. But a friend? And what information about her grandfather? Amelia had never mentioned her family. All she had disclosed was that she had no blood relatives. She raced back to the station, the rain a relentless drumbeat against the taxi roof. The note was scanned and analyzed. The paper was old, likely from a local stationery shop, but the handwriting was unfamiliar. Mallory dug deeper into Amelia's background. The search was frustratingly slow. Amelia had been orphaned as a child, raised in a series of foster homes. Her early records were patchy, incomplete, and often contradictory. Finally, after days of relentless searching, she found it. Amelia's grandfather, Thomas Hayes, had been a prominent figure in St. Clement's, a wealthy landowner who had mysteriously disappeared in 1945, leaving behind a considerable fortune and a cloud of suspicion. The official story was that he had died in the war, but rumors persisted that he had faked his death, embezzled funds, and fled the country. Could Amelia's disappearance be connected to her grandfather's past? Had someone discovered something about Thomas Hayes and used it to lure Amelia into a trap? Mallory felt a surge of adrenaline. She had something to work with. She dispatched Davies to the old mill, a crumbling stone structure on the outskirts of town, now a popular spot for teenagers and graffiti artists. The mill offered nothing: cobwebs, damp, and the lingering smell of urine. Davies found no signs of a struggle, no recent activity, just another dead end. Mallory refused to give up. She returned to St. Clement's, this time focusing her attention on the local history archives. She spent hours poring over old newspapers, property deeds, and family trees. She learned that Thomas Hayes had been a ruthless man, known for his shady business dealings and his numerous enemies. He had owned a vast tract of land, including the land where St. Clement's Library now stood. As she traced the ownership of the land, she discovered something intriguing. In the late 1940s, shortly after Thomas Hayes's disappearance, a small clause had been added to the property deed stipulating that any discovery of valuable artifacts or historical significance on the land would revert ownership to the Hayes family or their direct descendants. Could someone have found something valuable on the library grounds and wanted to claim it? Could Amelia have stumbled upon it first? The trace of iron oxide on Amelia's doorknob niggled at Mallory. She returned to the forensics report, and this time she focused on the iron oxide and St. Clement's. There was an old Iron Age mining site nearby, abandoned several centuries ago. The ore would still contain traces of iron oxide. Mallory contacted a local geologist and asked him to analyze the iron oxide found on Amelia's doorknob. The geologist confirmed that it was consistent with ore taken from the old Iron Age site. This was more than a coincidence. Mallory decided to visit the old mining site. She pulled on her Wellington boots and trudged through the muddy terrain, the November rain relentless. The site was overgrown with weeds and brambles, a maze of collapsed tunnels and crumbling earthworks. As she navigated the treacherous terrain, she noticed something glinting in the mud. It was a small, tarnished silver locket. She picked it up, her heart pounding in her chest. The locket was engraved with the initials A.H. She prized it open. Inside were two tiny photographs. One, a sepia-toned image of a young Thomas Hayes, looking dashing and confident. The other, a modern photograph of Amelia. This was it. She knew she was close. She continued to explore the site, her eyes scanning every inch of the ground. Finally, she saw it. A patch of disturbed earth, partially hidden beneath a pile of fallen leaves. With trembling hands, she began to dig. The earth was soft and easily moved. Within minutes, she uncovered a piece of fabric. Then another. And then she saw bone. The body was wrapped in a thick tarpaulin, its features obscured by decay. But the clothing, a simple blue dress and a pair of sensible shoes, were unmistakably Amelia's. Mallory stepped back, her stomach churning. She called for backup, her voice barely a whisper. The scene was secured, and the grim task of recovering the body began. As the forensics team worked, Mallory stood watching, her mind racing. She knew who had killed Amelia. The locket was the key. The next morning, Mallory summoned the pink-haired librarian, Sarah, to her office. Sarah looked nervous, her bright smile replaced by a worried frown. "Sarah," Mallory began, her voice gentle but firm, "I need you to be honest with me. Did you know about Amelia's grandfather?" Sarah hesitated, her eyes darting around the room. I knew a little bit. She mentioned him once, in passing. Did you know that he owned the land where the library now stands?" Sarah nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I remember something about that. And did you know about the clause in the property deed? The one that said that any valuable discoveries would revert ownership to the Hayes family?" Sarah's eyes widened. "No, I didn't know about that." Mallory leaned forward. "Sarah, we found a locket at the old mining site. It belonged to Amelia. Inside, there was a picture of her and a picture of Thomas Hayes. We also found her body there. She'd been buried alive." Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God, that's terrible!" "Sarah, you work at the library. You have access to the archives. You knew about Thomas Hayes and the land. You wrote the note to Amelia. You knew Amelia would come." Sarah's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," she sobbed. "I just wanted the money. My family is in debt. We were going to lose our house." Mallory listened patiently as Sarah confessed. A local historian, employed by the town, had told her about Thomas Hayes and the clause in the property deed. She knew the mining site was nearby. Sarah had realized that Thomas Hayes must have hidden valuables there. Amelia's presence in the town, as a direct descendant, had given her the idea. Sarah had found a cache of Roman coins at the Iron Age site, and knew if they were discovered, they would be worth a fortune. The locket, she believed, was a clue to its location. Sarah lured Amelia to the site under the guise of sharing information about her grandfather. Her plan was simple. She was going to find out the location and then share the discovery with Amelia, with a pre-arranged deal. The coins were worth more to her than a library job. When Amelia found the locket first, Sarah panicked. She had tried to grab it, but Amelia resisted. In the struggle, Amelia tripped and fell into a collapsed mine shaft, landing at the bottom, unconscious. Sarah, seeing her chance, panicked. She covered the shaft with earth and leaves, ensuring Amelia would never reveal her discovery. "I didn't mean to kill her," Sarah wailed. "It was an accident. I just wanted the money." Mallory remained impassive. "You buried her alive, Sarah. That's murder." As officers led Sarah away, Mallory stared out at the rain-soaked street. The case was closed, but the chill in her bones remained. Amelia Hayes, the quiet librarian, had been murdered for a handful of old coins. A life, meticulously crafted and meticulously lived, extinguished in the pursuit of greed. Mallory returned to her office, the chipped mug still warm in her hands. She opened the case file one last time, her gaze lingering on Amelia's photograph. A small, almost imperceptible smile played on her lips. "Rest in peace, Amelia," she whispered. "You can finally pay your library fines in peace. If you love uncovering hidden truths and fascinating stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. And hey, share this with someone who loves a good mystery."